Fantastic. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to Nudgestock. My name's Sonia Friedrich, and today what I'd like to do is to excite you to think differently about solving problems in business in real time. My team and I work with top 200 companies down to solopreneurs, and today we want to share one case study and some insights that came along the way that may be of benefit to you. So let's begin. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to imagine that you are on the board, or you are the founder, or you are part of the executive team of a multi-million dollar business that's based in Sweden. It's a franchise that has 26 franchisees. And for the last 12 months, 11 of those 12 months, you've actually been in decline. In fact, in 11 of those 12 months, you've been losing sales from between 13% and 3% every month. And as a collective, you're trying to work out, why are you losing this money? And why are you in decline? And the whole group continues to come back to the same reason, that there's a belief that it's from a market downturn. Yet what if it isn't from a market downturn? What if it's from something else, but we've just been unable to see it? Collectively, we haven't been able to see it to date. I want you to now imagine that you are the founder of Naked Juice Bar in Sweden. And you've moved back to Byron Bay. And while you're there, a friend has said, you need to meet with this woman, Sonia Friedrich. She does stuff in behavioural economics. And you wonder what behavioural economics is, but you decide to meet over a coffee. And for some reason, over this coffee, you ponder whether or not between the two of you, one, you can solve the problem as why the business is in decline in Sweden. And two, you can turn it back into growth. And so while you're sitting there, what happens is Sonia starts speaking to you about irrational pricing and why it wins. And she starts talking to you about heuristics and biases and what we know about the brain today. Why people buy, why they spend money, why they take risks, and how they make choices about things. And all of us who work in the space of behavioral economics, we understand that it's really difficult concept to grasp for people who aren't within it, unless you share some examples, some stories about what's worked and what hasn't in real time. So I'm sitting there and I'm sharing stories with Maria about anchoring and framing and choice architecture, which we know will all impact about why somebody buys. And then I start speaking about the power of decoys. I speak about attraction effects or asymmetrical dominating effects and compromise effects. And it's while I'm having this conversation that this light bulb moment goes on, and Maria stops me and she says, I think you may have just worked out why we've been losing sales in Sweden. So she gets excited and I get excited that within days, they've actually changed their entire menu. And what they've done is they've taken all of these nudge ideas and they've put it into their new menu. And that's when I start getting scared. And I say, we need to stop. We need to slow everything down. And the first thing we need to do is we need to prove what we're thinking. We need to prove that the downturn has actually been caused by what we think it is. And then instead of doing 20 nudges at once, we need to do one at a time. And we work with my team of statisticians and data analysts. And what we want to do is prove one nudge at a time that it works for your business, because that's how you now build business IP, rather than actually do 20 things at once and then wonder which one worked. And that's what I love about the world of behavioral economics. Everything's measured, so we know it really works for the business. So here's one of the team and in one of the franchises in Sweden. And if you've been to Sweden, you've probably seen one of these franchisees in the airport. And if you haven't, next time you're there, please stop in and order something. What I'd also want you to do is just focus on a few of these products here. You can see they sell quite a lot, but all I want you to focus in on is these three cups. These three cups. There's a small, there's a regular, and there's a large. And now I want you to focus in even more. I want you to focus in on this green one, this green small cup. It's called the kids cup. It's 300 mils. The middle one is 400 mils, and the large one is 550 mils. Now imagine you're running a business and one of your products isn't selling so well. And we've all done this, and I've certainly been in situations before where I've done it too. And what happened is when that product isn't selling, we delete it. But unlike what we often do when we're bringing something new into a business, where we pilot it before we bring it in, rarely do we pilot the deletion of a product line. And so what happened was this kids cup that wasn't selling so well got deleted. And so then there were two cups left. There was the regular and there was the large, and the kids cup was no longer available. So we wanted to determine whether or not removing this kids cup had an effect on overall sales of the franchise. And we wanted to ask ourselves, ideally, we actually wanted to decide and know that it was causal. Was it correlated coincidence, or actually it was none of the above? And so we set ourselves a task in the first instance, and this was our first nudge. Our first nudge was based on something that actually previously already occurred in the business and actually had occurred quite some time ago. And we wanted to identify whether or not a reverse effect had occurred. Did this deletion of the kids' cup size result in a reverse effect and reduce overall drink sales across the franchise? What a powerful thing to find out if it did. It would mean we had solved the first problem of understanding why there was a decline in the first place. And so, what was critical here was understanding the data. In today's world, there's a lot of data that is available electronically, which is fantastic. When we were doing this nudge, it was during a transition time for Naked Juice Bar. They were just going into electronic point of sale, which meant we actually had to get the data manually. Not me, their team. And I really give them credit and take my hat off to the team because it took them 3 months to manually get the data to actually give us enough information that our statistical team could look into and see whether or not there was any relationship whatsoever. And they did it. And so we looked at the data and we said, what's in there? And here's what we found. This little green cup had caused so much in this business that in one of the franchises, it had resulted in a 19% decrease in unit sales. And it was highly statistically significant. In a second franchise, it had resulted in an 11% decline in unit sales as well. And this was also statistically significant. We had deliberately only chosen 2 experimental stores. We knew that we could actually get the data from those 2 stores without disrupting the entire business, and we could do it in a time frame that seemed possible because we needed to do it manually. And in real time and in real life, there are factors that need to be taken into consideration when we're looking at the implementation and the understanding of nudges. So there was something else going on when the business deleted this little green cup. Something else unexpected happened. And again, in the world of behavioral economics, we always want to be measuring so we can look for unintended consequences. And so, as I mentioned before, there were 3 sizes. There was a premium blend, there were juices and smoothies. That's the way you could purchase the drinks at Naked Juice Bar. But it turns out premium blends never had a kid's cup. That size never existed when you actually went to purchase a premium blend. You could only ever get a regular or a large. And so when the kids' cup was deleted, it turns out there was an equivalent loss in sales across the premium blends of a 10% decline across the board. And this was an unintended consequence that we didn't think would happen, but it actually piggybacked this deletion. And so it's really powerful to understand what's going on in the entire dynamic of a business. What this also did was change what we were going to do as our second nudge. Because ideally, we wanted to run one nudge in franchise 1 and another nudge in franchise 2 and run them in parallel. We wanted a compromise effect in one and an attraction effect in another, so we could learn which one actually gives the best result for the business. Learning this, we realized that what had actually happened was there wasn't a conversion to the other products. We'd lost those customers by deleting the kids' cup. So we didn't want to just reintroduce the kids' cup because those customers are gone. We actually wanted to test something else first and test something else with the adult sizes and see whether or not we could get a behavior change there first, and also see whether or not we could turn around this loss of growth. So here was our second experiment. We set out to prove adding a third option to an existing choice set of 2 for a select segment, as I mentioned, adults only, not the kids ones, would actually affect buying patterns. And here was the design we ended up with. Now, this can look really, really simple. It can look simple that we've now just got 3 cups. And I can assure you that a lot of the nudges in behavioral economics look simple, but the thinking behind them is really, really complex. And it's the thinking behind them that makes them successful. Because we need to take into consideration the data. We need to take in consideration the financial reality of a business, of what actually gives them a net profit and increases their gross margin, not just put 3 cups out there and see what happens. In this instance, we also needed to take into account how many meals we fill each cup with, because every meal is actually a cost to the business. And so we could factor that in. So there were a lot of calculations going on behind the scene as we decided to do these three cups and at those prices. And as we mentioned, there was no kids cup in this second nudge. So what happened when we did introduce that? Let's have a look at these results. We did an analysis 6 weeks prior to the introduction and an analysis 6 weeks post. And we were really limited by time here. We were getting towards the end of the year when holidays were coming in. Christmas wasn't too far away. And we realized that if we didn't run this experiment prior to when we did, we would be waiting till March the following year, and it would delay the outcomes by a minimum of 5 months. But look at these amazing results. What we saw was an 8.2% increase in revenue and 4.8% increase in units sold. Now, we did also find that it wasn't statistically significant. We did not run this for long enough period of time for us to get that significance. The client, as you can imagine, actually didn't want us to go on with the measurement. They now wanted to roll this out across their 26 franchises and actually see what else they could get as a result in the franchise. And so they went on and did that. And they've gone on and run additional nudge experiments. And they've actually still got now the 3 adult size cups, and they have introduced a kids cup with some of the products that are sold. So thanks again for having me. We love to work with everyone, anywhere. And so I'd love to hear from you if we can help you. And good luck for everybody with what you learned through Nudgestock 2020, because it's such an amazing event for us to all be a part of across the globe. Thank you.